melatonin, valerian, CBD oil, you name it, and I tried it, like everything. Like I would have many sleepless nights, like completely sleepless. I would say around like 3 days in a row, I wouldn't sleep. And then I was so broken that I would sleep. And then the next day I would panic and be like, oh my God, I can't do this again. And it obviously would happen again. I got dizzy, I hadn't slept. I was so anxious. And my trainer said, I think you should go home. When I got home, and that was, I think, the biggest breakdown I've had, because I thought, all right, this is the first time in my life that anxiety or fear is winning and it is taking over my life. So it sounds stupid or silly, but for me, it was the first time that I was like, I don't know if I'm going to survive this. It was like a deadly fear. And when I realized, all right, so my body has this self-healing thing. What if my mind has that too? What if I also don't have to fix anything that's going on in my mind? And that's when I sometimes noticed like the peace that I would feel when I was like, you know what? It's just, my mind is just none of my business. Like that's, I think it's a quote some like philosopher said, your mind is not your business. This can be applied to more things in life. I've applied it to many things since then. If I was worried about something else, or I was like in heartbreak, or I was like, you know what? Your mind will heal itself. You don't have to do anything. Insomnia does not end with good sleep. Somehow you'll sleep really well, and then you'll enter a speed bump because you're going to be so worried. The fear's going to like take over a little bit again, and that's when you're going to have a speed bump. But then you have an easier time and another speed bump. And every speed bump, you learn more. You need to be brave. You need to start doing stuff and not like putting your life on pause. You need to really get out and do stuff. I would say download the Bedtime app. Download it. You're going to learn so much. You're going to have somebody to talk to. Watch the success stories and hang in there, because even though it's going to sound incredibly unbelievable right now, even like if people are watching this, that you will get out of this.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to yet another really special Talking Insomnia episode. We have Tess with us. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. Can't wait to share your story with the community. And
Yeah.
just so everybody kind of knows how this came about, you were a member of the Insomnia Immunity Program and Bedtime, and you've been following the channel, working with Alina a bit. And then you sent an email saying that, hey, I'd like to be a guest. And I was so grateful. I'm always so grateful for the email. So that brought us to this moment. And with that said, tell us, Tessa, how did you start having trouble with sleep?
Yeah, so it actually started when I was 19 for the first time. It was during COVID, and I was just worried about like a bunch of things in life. But then all of a sudden, I started worrying about sleep. And all of a sudden, that turned into big, massive panic. And it lasted for about 3 days. I was awake for 3 whole days. And I obviously called my doctor and I said, something's wrong with me. I don't know what's going on. She prescribed me Restoril, I think it's called in English.
Yeah, Restoring.
And that put me to sleep. And I think it had to do with the fact that it was COVID. There was not any pressure to sleep. I didn't have like my study I needed to get to or a job. I was fine just being at home. So it put me to sleep and I kind of forgot all about it until I was 22. And I'm 24 now, almost 25. And I remember I was just studying. I was trying to become a teacher. So I had an internship and I was a student. I lived at that point by myself. I had this student flat that I shared. And I was partying often, almost every week. And I remember that my body kept telling me to like calm down because I was partying so often. I had this like huge social life. And I got sick constantly. I got the flu, I got a tonsil infection, but I was like, I take a painkiller and I go out and do my thing. But then I got a tonsil infection, which is, I think, the worst pain I've ever felt. It was so painful that it kept me up again, kind of symbolic, for 3 whole days. And that was the first time that I started feeling the panic of, okay, I really need to sleep because my body needs to heal. And I have a job I need to get to. I have a social life that I have to get to. And that's kind of when the entire panic set in. And I went into this whole other phase of my life where everything kind of changed. That's kind of how it started.
Yes. Thanks for sharing that. And so we have this kind of like the first brief episode
Yep.
that kind of like resolved. You took some Restoril and it was fine. But you
Yeah.
didn't entirely forget about it. Like part of the brain was probably like
Yeah.
remembering there's something there, right? Then you
Yeah.
have the pain that keeps you awake, and it reminds you of like, oh no, is it this again? Is it back,
Hmm.
etc. So
Yeah.
now we're going 3 days without sleep, and you're starting to panic again. And yeah, just take us further. What happens next?
So obviously, I first went back to the rest reel because I thought that helped the first time around. That did obviously not happen, like help the second time around. So that's when I started trying everything. So melatonin, valerian, CBD oil, you name it, and I tried it, like everything. That didn't work. So I started entering like a big phase of panic. It actually was so bad that I moved back to my parents. I was living in a student flat, but I couldn't handle the panic like alone at night. So I moved back to my parents, and I had in my head like, all right, that's gonna be maybe 2 to 3 weeks. I ended up staying half a year, like a very long time. And I started researching. I was like, what is going on with me? And I think I don't know what you call it. You have this name for it in the book. It's called the phase.
Yeah, yeah, the investigative phase,
No,
maybe.
like the first one where you're
Oh yeah, the yo-yo,
bewildered.
or maybe this is probably when you're in Oz. I call it like you're
Yeah,
in Oz.
that's the
Everything's
one.
bewildering. Yeah.
Yeah, you're in Oz. What is happening to me? So I started Googling, watching some videos. I started like obviously with Dutch programs because I'm Dutch, so I started looking for like Dutch material to read up. Couldn't find much, only the basic stuff like, all right, just relax, do a meditation. I don't know, don't drink too much coffee. So I obviously did all those things, but then I would meditate before bed and I would just be like, all right, is it working? Am I tired? Am I sleeping yet? Then I bought Dr. Meadows' book about accepting. So I spent my entire night trying to accept what was happening. I was like, all right, I need to accept this is happening. So I'm laying here for hours. Okay, I need to accept. I need to accept. And it was so frustrating because even at that point, even though it was quite early, I knew that acceptance was eventually the way to get there. But that was in my head, just another effort. And I knew that that was happening. So I had this like power battle that I was like, I know that I'm trying to accept this so that I will sleep, but I can't stop because trying to stop accepting is again an effort. So I was stuck in this loop the entire night. Like, I'm trying to accept. I shouldn't try to accept because that's still like an effort, but I can't stop. So it was very frustrating to be in that loop. So I started Googling more and more, like, where can I find more people that have gone through this? And I think through like a Reddit sub, I found your page. And that's, yeah, when everything slowly started to change. It was, first thing I felt was relief because I found your channel. I found, I think it was your books as well. It was kind of at the same time that I bought your books. I found the channel and I found the Bedtime app. And that was the first step I took. I downloaded the Bedtime app, and Alina was my coach. And that was lovely because I was looking for somebody my age as well. Because I saw a lot of people that were a bit older, and I was like, where are the students? Like people my age that see their friends going out and having a great time and not being worried about any of this. And here I am worried about something that nobody seems to worry about, and I'm stuck. So that's kind of how I found your page and how it sort of continued.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe it was kind of like the perfect time to pause a little bit because
yeah,
we're getting to the part where we'll see what you learn and how things started to
yeah,
change for you. But before we go to that part,
yeah,
we've heard of like a stretch of maybe 6 to 8 months or so where things were really difficult. Is that true?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
definitely.
if we explore this a little bit further, um, you had these 3 sleepless nights after with the pain, right?
Yeah.
And after that, what was it like? Was it mostly like you had all-nighters here and there, or it was mostly like choppy nights, or like what were your nights like?
My nights were, I had this cycle that I entered where I think the first like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I barely slept at all. Like I would have many sleepless nights, like completely sleepless. I would say around like 3 days in a row, I wouldn't sleep. And then I was so broken that I would sleep. And then the next day I would panic and be like, oh my God, I can't do this again. And it obviously would happen again. And then after a while, crazy enough, you do get used to sleeping less. So you get panicked a little bit less. But obviously the panic was still there. And it would usually go like I would go to bed early in hopes of, catching some sleep. I would be kind of all right until it would be like 12 or 1 a.m., something like that. Because then it was kind of sad because I was at that point 22 and I felt like a failure being back at my parents' house. But that's usually when I heard them go to bed. And I was like, oh no, like they're going to bed, like normal people are sleeping now. I should have been like asleep by now. That's when the panic would set in, and I would be awake having this heart racing. Like my heart was racing, my mind was racing. I was like, it was just a panic attack basically, like for hours. And then around 5, when it would be 5 a.m., I would hear the birds, and that's when I would have a breakdown because I you had like this 6-hour period of just pure panic, and that's when I would cry my eyes out. I would like be bawling. And then usually I was like, I felt like a baby. I had cried and I was so tired that if I was lucky, not every night, I would fall asleep. And sometimes I wouldn't. I would have a sleepless night, but usually that was kind of the way. And then I would wake up at 8 a.m. So I would have slept like 2 to 3 hours. Those were mostly what my weeks looked like. Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
get more. If I had 5 hours a night, it was a good night. And I remember a little bit further on, when we get to it, I had slept 6 hours, and that was like a massive thing for me. I'd slept 6 hours, and I had a friend of mine, and we had a football match because I play football. And I remember coming to training, and she was like, "Oh, I feel so bad. I slept 6 hours." And I was like, "Oh my god, I slept 6 hours, and I feel on top of the world." So that's kind of when I started. That was a big lesson on our perception of sleep and how that influences how we feel. So,
Yeah.
but we'll get to that. But that's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
what my nights look like.
No, thanks so much for sharing that. You're telling it in a very powerful way. It's very clear how difficult that was. And speaking of like football, and you were a student
Yeah.
during the stretch. Did you continue your studies? And how were your days? What were your days like?
Yeah, so it became really tough. I was lucky enough to have almost finished my internship when this happened. I think I had 1 month left. So that entire month was terrible. I was just winging it. I was still continuing my studies and my job because that's something, when I was 19 and I was like stressed about other things. I've never let that get into the way of my studies, my career, or anything like that. So for me, there was always, no matter how little I sleep, I'm going to continue studying. I'm going to work. So I did. But obviously, when you're in a panic phase, you're at work, but the only thing you think about is how you're going to sleep tonight and the terrible night that you've had. So it was very hard to focus, but I was also like, all right, 1 month. I don't know how I would have done it if it wasn't just 1 month. Maybe I would have quit, but I was lucky enough that it was just 1 month. So I was continuing working, but I would, for example, take the Uber to work, like super, so that I could sleep as long as possible in the morning. Um, Trying to like, I don't know, take sort of measures so I could, make it work. Football, I was trying to do. I didn't go every training, but I tried to go whenever, like my mom would force me as well. She would force me, and I think that was very difficult to combine with the lack of sleep because that's kind of when I got to my lowest point. Because, like I said, I had never let anything get in the way of my life. Even if I was anxious or depressed or whatever, I would do my daily things. But this sleep thing was a bit different because there was a time where, in like the first 2 months, I went to training and I hadn't slept at all. Like, even I think I had a sleepless night. And obviously, my weeks before that were maximum 2 or 3 hours if I was lucky. And I was taking the Restoril just in case. It was the only thing I had. So I was like, I'll take it just in case. Hopefully, it works. And I got to training and I was so tired and I was so scared because the training was at night. And I knew that after training, I had to go to sleep. Um, so I was scared. And at training, I just got sick. I got dizzy. I hadn't slept. I was so anxious. And my trainer said, I think you should go home. And that was when I got home. And that was, I think, the biggest breakdown I've had because I thought, all right, this is the first time in my life that anxiety or fear is winning. And it is taking over my life. I cannot train anymore. Football, it's like the thing I love to do most. I can't do that anymore because of the lack of sleep. So it sounds stupid or silly, but for me, it was the first time that I was like, I don't know if I'm going to survive this. Like, it was like a deadly fear of this is going to take over, and there's going to be nothing left of me. Which sounds so silly looking back, because it's just about sleep, but it feels so real. You're like, this is actually going to kill me.
Yeah, but the way you tell your story, it actually makes total sense, because
Yeah,
you had troubles, you've had some anxiety here and there in your life, but it's never impacted like another side of you, which is like your life, your
yeah,
social life, sports, etc. And here's maybe the first time somebody tells you, I
yeah,
think you should go home, and
yeah,
you can so easily see how that becomes like, oh my gosh, people are going to tell me I can't work, I can't do sports, I
yeah,
can't do anything, and
yeah,
you project all these things in the future. So of course that's super super scary.
yeah,
Um, and which made me want to ask about. I think I kind of can guess the answer to this one, but like the partying and the social life, that was also a big part of your life, and I'm guessing that became a little more subdued, or
yeah,
maybe not.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, 100%. No, I stopped going out. I even, like, in the moment when I was doing so bad with the training and everything, I actually sent out like a message to like some of my closest friends, like, I'm so sorry, you're not gonna be like seeing me that often at parties or like social events, because I'm just struggling right now with like sleep, and I hope like the friendship won't suffer too much because of it. But I actually send out a message to my friends that I'm just not gonna be around for a while because I don't know what's happening to me. So
Yeah.
it did impact that part of my life, but that was like socializing, going out and partying, that was a big part of my life. But the more important things like work and football, those things were like very important to me. It was the most important thing to me that they would not be affected.
Yeah.
And when I noticed that they were being affected by this, that's when like the lowest point hit, that
Yeah.
I didn't see like light at the end of the tunnel.
I hear, and we'll of course get to kind of like the uplifting part of the story
Yeah.
soon. Staying here in the kind of difficult part a little longer, did you ever come across CBT-I?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I bought this like way too expensive course in the Netherlands, and it was just very depressing because I think maybe for some people it can be beneficial, but for me, I was already quite good at seeing what was going on. I just couldn't get out of it, and I didn't really know what a sleep effort was, for instance. But CBTI was more about like challenging those thoughts, right? I think that's like
Yeah,
the
often the part about challenging thoughts is often actually kind of overlooked. Although that to me, I think that is maybe the more helpful part of it. But
yeah.
CBT-I often is about like sleep restriction. Get good
Yes,
at
I did
late,
that too.
those things.
Yeah, I did that too. Yeah, I tried everything under the sun. So I also tried a course, which those were all Dutch courses. I tried one with sleep restriction. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible because the only thing I thought was, all right, I'm gonna go to bed at like 12, and I'm just gonna think, all right, I only have 6 hours. I need to sleep now because I only have 6 hours. And then when I didn't sleep and you had to get out of bed, I mean, you don't want to, because if you're finally asleep by let's say 5 a.m. and your alarm goes 1 hour after, you don't want to. So for me, that didn't work at all. I don't think I did it for a long time, maybe like a few days before I realized this is just giving me more panic. I'm already panicked, and this is just making it worse. Um, yeah, so that's kind of my experience with
Yeah,
the sleep
you have
restriction.
tried that too. Yeah. And how about this? Like your internship finished after 1 month, and
Yeah.
were you sort of on a break after that, or did you have obligations after that?
Yeah, I had a minor that I was doing in Amsterdam. It was actually positive psychology. So it came in the right time. I have to say it did help me. It didn't make it worse. But I did every time I had to go study. I did go there sometimes without having slept anything. But I would, for example, take the Uber again. I would try to find little ways that I could be there and do my studies while, like, I don't know, taking an Uber or going just for like half the day. But I never let it impact like my grades or anything. I passed with flying colors. So I
Yeah.
continued doing that, even because I was like, even if I'm at home and I'm awake, might as well study. Sometimes even during the night when I couldn't sleep, I was like, you know what, I'll just study then and do something else.
Yeah, no, I think this is so helpful to share, because one of the most common questions I get, Tess, is like somebody who's like really struggling, and they're saying like, this has been going for, let's say, 2 months or something, and they're
Yeah.
like, I don't understand how anyone can go through this for like more time than this,
Right.
with everything they need to do and obligations. And then I'm reminded of like everybody who's shared your story, and it essentially becomes like it was really really tough but somehow you muddled through. You were
Yeah.
able to study, you were able to do work, which is, I
Yeah.
think, so helpful for people to see.
I mean, I think when you go through this, it's something that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. So it is also like, I wouldn't say I'm grateful for it, but it is a valuable thing that I take with me, is the fact that you learn how capable you are, how much you can do without having slept anything. Like, anytime now somebody, it's kind of rude because I try to be kind, but anytime somebody tells me, oh, I had a terrible night, I slept 5 hours, in my head I'm like, all right, like, calm down, you'll get through the day. Like, I completely look at sleep differently now than I did before. So it changes your perspective, this whole thing. And I think
Yeah,
for me, when we get to the more uplifting part of the story, you see that, like, even before, even though I didn't see it that way yet, it felt like I was struggling through so much. Like, I really had to sort of fight to be able to study and fight to be able to do my internship and stand in front of a classroom, even though I was full of panic. Like, I was teaching children while thinking, oh my God, how am I going to sleep tonight? And it takes a lot of coffee and a lot of, I guess, bravery to go and do your thing.
yeah,
So, yeah, that's kind of the two things you need.
yeah. Coffee and courage.
Yeah, you really coffee
Thanks
and
so much.
courage. Yeah, maybe it can be your next book.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. That's right. Wow. Okay. So, you're in this place now, where again, you've gone through a really dark time, but you're studying positive psychology. Things are getting maybe a little slightly easier, but still really difficult. And I'm guessing, not to put words in your mouth, but you have this idea that your situation is kind of unique. There's nobody quite like you. Did you have those type of
Yeah,
ideas?
100%. I was looking for other students like me, that were like a bit younger, that were seeing like people their age going out, having fun, partying, where you're stuck at home thinking about sleep.
Yeah.
I was looking for those people, and I also didn't find many people that were telling the story of knowing kind of what's going on. I can see that I'm resisting something, that I'm not accepting something, but people that were stuck in that loop.
Yeah.
Because it was a very, like, in my eyes, unique loop where you do have like some kind of knowledge of what's going on, and still you can't get out. That was very, very frustrating to not be able to find people that I could relate to. And yeah, sort of, I think somebody else said that, and it was so catchy, that when you would go to sleep, you would close your eyes, but they would open on the inside, where you would just be monitoring and monitoring. And I mean, those stories I could find on your channel. But yeah, the conscious looping, I couldn't find many of those.
Right, right. We should talk a little bit more about that, because I think you are not the only one. There are
Yeah.
definitely people who have had that exact same kind of like predicament. But okay, back to your story. You go to Reddit. They tell you about the sleep coach school. You find like the app, the channel, etc. And like take us to from there. Kind of what starts happening after that.
Yeah, so initially I felt relief that there was something out there that could help me. And I downloaded the app. And I think many people have said this before, but it was so nice actually looking back that you go like day by day. Because the first thing you want to do is run through the entire app, give me everything. So that was nice. It was like separated into little things. But I did buy like every book you have. And I read those all in like 2 3 days. So initially I felt very like relieved having all this knowledge. And Alina was super sweet. She was also like sort of my age, like in her 20s. So it was very nice to talk to her. But it also raised like a bit of frustration at the beginning, because I was like, all right, I see what is going on. I now know what a sleep effort is. I know that, the attention is what feeds this thing. But I started getting stuck in that loop of, all right, so I'm going to stop giving it attention. I'm going to accept what is going on, and I'm just going to chill. And then I was like, am I sleeping yet? Like, I was trying so much still to sleep. And even lying in bed, I was like, all right, Tess, you know that everything you're doing is still aimed at sleeping, right? But that was just because I was still afraid. I was afraid of not sleeping. And that's kind of when that started to click. And I started reading stuff about Ellie's take. I think she made like some videos. That's when things started shifting like slowly. But yeah, I first found the app, the books, the videos, the success stories. That's when I first felt some relief. And then again, I guess a bit of frustration because I was still scared and I didn't see that. Yeah, so that's kind of how
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you're illustrating something that is common, and I think also so helpful to talk about, which is that, once you start having these moments of clarity, you can have this like relief. You're like, oh, the mystery comes down a little bit. You're like, oh, and that can often also translate into sleeping a little easier. But as you point out, like the brain in the survival mode, it wants to turn everything into like an attempt to like have control. Like it turns
Yeah,
everything into sleep effort. So then you have
yeah,
this dance between like clarity and like still struggling, et cetera, et cetera. But you point out something really, really helpful, which is that I think one of the real big realizations is that it really all comes from, insomnia really is about thinking of not sleeping as like a threat, being afraid of
yeah,
not sleeping, right? Which is a
yeah.
big realization. But anyways, what just take us further, kind of what happens next?
Yeah, so I started watching the videos. I downloaded the app. I went through like every day a lesson. I talked to Alina on the app like often. And I have to give you like a big props to the bot, like Ellie. That one is so good. It's so nice to be able in the middle of the night when nobody's awake to talk to you, to write your doubts and get like an immediate response. Like that was amazing, super helpful. It made me feel a little bit less alone. Like somebody who could, even though it's not really a somebody, can give you like some type of advice when you're struggling in the middle of the night. So that really was super helpful. I started watching the success stories; those were super helpful. I read your books, but I did that in the first 3 days, and I just kept reading them over and over again. And I joined the immunity program for a little while, which I really enjoyed. I had, I think, a few coaching calls with Chris, I think,
Yeah, Chris. Yeah,
with the beard.
yeah,
Yeah, his story was just super like captivating, where he went like through a very dark period as well. So I could relate to that, and I felt like I needed somebody to understand that pain and that fear and that idea of I can't do this anymore. So that was all super helpful. I did quit the immunity program because I felt that I was very distracted by other people's sort of stories. I felt that some people were then making progress, and I was like, I'm not. And some people said, oh, I've been struggling for 20 years. And I was like, oh my God, 20 years? I can't do this for 20 years. So I got distracted by all of that. So I was like, all right, I'll stay with the Bedtime app and focus on my own, process. So slowly I started, and that's also, I think, for people that are watching the story, is that your body gets used to certain fears, it gets used to a lack of sleep. So a sleepless night, once you've seen, all right, I won't die, I'll get through the day, your body will know, all right, the next sleepless night, I won't die. Like we've seen that we won't die. So that extreme fear of this is going to kill me got less. Like it's going to get a little bit less. So every night, I wouldn't say every night, it took a long time, but I got a bit more chill with being in bed and being awake. Especially because after I think a few months, you realize that there's absolutely nothing you can do to get yourself to sleep. So when you're awake again and you're worried, you're still going to be worried because you're still afraid, but you're at least going to see there's nothing I can do about it. So that's kind of how that progressed. Um, then I think slowly I started reading up on you had her as a guest. She's called Lily
Lily.
says
Yeah, she says size. Yeah, Lily size.
Size, Lily
Yeah,
Size. She talked about like the three principle theory. I kind of let that go, but I did sort of remember that she talked about, or like somebody that she referred to again. I started researching her, and somebody said that your mind and your body have this self healing capacity. So I started thinking about how your body, if you have a little wound, you don't scratch it because it'll get worse. If you just let it be, it'll resolve itself. So I started thinking about that with sleep. All right, so what if my body just knows what to do and I don't need to get involved? Okay, but I cannot stop getting involved. Like I can't stop myself. So what do I do? And I was like, what if you also don't have to stop your mind from worrying so much? What if that also resolves itself? Like I'm worried and I can't stop it. All right, what if you don't have to stop it? That's when things started to shift. That's really when things started to shift because I was so like in this vicious circle of I know what is going on and I shouldn't try, but I'm trying anyway. And I was like, how do I stop this? Like I need to stop it. And I was like, what if I don't have to stop any of this? What if that also solves itself? And that's when I started falling asleep sometimes. That I was like, you know what, I'm gonna lay here and I'm gonna chill. And if my mind stops itself, it'll stop itself. If my body needs sleep, it'll get sleep. And that's kind of when I started seeing that that actually happened. Like when I stopped like getting involved with my mind's process or my body's process. That's kind of when we go to the better part of things.
Yeah.
So continuing that, it got quite good when I was still studying. Like I was slowly becoming more chill. I wasn't having great nights. I would say like 5 to 6 hours, but that was for me like a good night. And that's also when I learned that sleep will not cure your insomnia. It will not cure your insomnia because when you sleep well, you're gonna be like, how can I recreate this? How can I, you know? So that's not gonna help you. Because that is kind of where I had to like fall and get back up. When I had slept, I was like, oh, all right, I just don't need to get involved. And then the next night, I would lay in bed and be like, all right, don't get involved. Don't get involved. I'm just not gonna get involved. And I was like, why am I not sleeping? So it took like a long time to sort of really feel and understand. So that took a lot of like falling back down, getting up. And at the same time, I was still listening to Ali's take. And she said something that always stuck with me. And that was like, your mind, like you can talk to your mind, but you cannot talk it into believing that you're safe. You have to experience it. Like it's a part of your brain that you cannot reach by talking, by listening, by reading. You need to experience it. And that's only when your body's going to be like, all right, it is actually safe to not sleep. It's not going to believe you until you've spent a sleepless night doing absolutely fine. And once I started getting a bit more peaceful with a sleepless night, that's also when I started doing things during the day a bit more. I would see my friends. I would, go to football practice. And what really helped me, and maybe as a tip for other people, is to sort of schedule. You don't have to sleep in that time, but like I would schedule nap time. So, for example, I had a sleepless night and I would have football practice. I'd be like, all right, well, after football practice, I have an hour where I can just chill and I can do nothing. And my body, if it needs the rest, it'll take it in that hour because I'll be just chilling. That really helped me. Also with work, I'd be like, all right, I'll go to work, but from 3 to 4, I'll have a nap hour, and I'll have an hour to just close my eyes and chill. And if my body needs sleep, it'll take it. And if it doesn't, it's fine. It means it doesn't need it. That's the thing. Your body will take sleep. Like all these people, everybody that's been on your channel that has been awake for a week, 2 weeks, 9 days, whatever, eventually they all slept because your body will take it. Like whether you want it or not, whether you're worried about it or not, whether you're in the middle of a panic attack, after around 2, maybe 3 weeks, your body will say, all right, and now I need it. So I don't care about your worries. I need sleep. So that's kind of what started changing stuff for me because after my minor positive psychology, I was done with my studies and I was officially a teacher and I had to get to work. And that's kind of when I had like these speed bumps, right? Where I would have to go to work and I, the night before, would be like, but I have to sleep. Like there are 30 kids that are going to be looking at me and I'm not an intern anymore. I'm a proper teacher. Like I need to talk to parents. I need to talk to colleagues. Like, how am I going to do this? And of course, I would have a sleepless night and I would go to work and I would work and I would have scheduled my nap. Like, all right, I'm going to have a nap hour. And I was fine. And even without a nap hour, I once had a day where I had to work from 9 to like 7 in the evening because it was like a parent teacher conference, or it was like even 9 to 9. And I hadn't slept. And I was fine. And that's when things like really got better, like exponentially. When you see yourself doing things without sleep and you're doing, well, you're not great. You're obviously tired and you feel off and you're scared, but you do function and you function sometimes like surprisingly well. That's when things start to change. Even my mom said it when I was like living at home and I was doing bad and I was so scared. Sometimes she would lay with me. Like she's an angel. She would lay in my bed and she would lay with me and she would fall asleep and I wouldn't. But sometimes I would keep her up as well because I was crying and I was panicked. And she would have to go to work without sleep. And she would always tell me, it went surprisingly well. Like I was tired, but I could function just fine. So that's kind of when things really got better for me.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So wonderful to hear this. I kept in my mind like mental note, like remember to ask Tess about how she left this loop of like understanding that this is like driven by fear, driven by anxiety, and that the more we
Yeah,
try to stop fear and anxiety, the stronger it becomes. But then realizing like you can't willfully stop yourself from trying to stop yourself, etc., etc.
yeah,
And it sounded to me like your answer become like that huge realization that, my body has self-healing properties. I don't need to do anything about a scar. Maybe I can do the same thing with sleep, but how about my attempts to have a control? Maybe I can do the same thing with that. Let everything go.
exactly.
That became sort of the answer. Is that true to say?
Yeah, that exactly became the answer. It was, I was so hyper fixated on trying to fix the rumination, trying to fix the problem, like the problem solving thing that was going on in my head. Um, and when I realized, all right, so my body has this self healing thing. What if my mind has that too? What if I also don't have to fix anything that's going on in my mind? And that's when I sometimes noticed like the peace that I would feel when I was like, you know what? It's just my mind is just none of my business. Like that's I think it's a quote some like philosopher said, your mind is not your business. So that's when this can be applied to more things in life. I've applied it to many things since then. If I was worried about something else or I was like in heartbreak or I was like, you know what, your mind will heal itself. You don't have to do anything. So that kind of
Yeah.
became something that really helped because I saw so many people on here talk about acceptance. And I was like, what is the secret that you guys know that I don't? Because I was watching these videos and I was like scrolling, like, when are they going to tell me what it is that's going to like fix everything? And I couldn't find it. And I was so frustrated. And people were like, yeah, it just got better. And I'm like, what do you mean it just got better? Like, I'm over here, like working my ass off, like trying everything and I couldn't find this answer anywhere. So I hope, and this is still not the answer, but I hope that some people will understand, like, maybe that's it. Maybe this will work.
Yeah. No, there's going to be somebody
I hope
listening to this guaranteed who has like the light bulb moment from what you shared today, no doubt.
I hope so.
And there's going to be other people who are like, oh, another person who just doesn't tell
She
me what
doesn't
to
tell
do.
me the
She doesn't
answer.
tell me the thing. We actually had a guest who said she was through this. She was like, I'm going to be different. I'm going to write down exactly what I did to tell people ever. And then afterwards, she's like, and I realized it doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
Was her realization.
yeah, that's
But
funny. I completely understand.
but
Yeah,
I
and
do
I think
want just
it's
a little, sorry, just a little quick kind of note to the audience here that like you had this, what I think is like huge realization that we just shared, the one about like you don't really need to do anything for your mind, your body to heal.
yeah,
Yet that didn't lead to you being like immediately sleeping well and leaving all the struggle. Like, it still took time for that
yeah,
to sink in and the experiential learning, everything,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think that's very important for everybody that had a like a serious insomnia issue or like an insomnia experience, I would say, is that it's going to take a long time. Like it takes so long for you to fully understand what it is to surrender, I would say, and learning that it's something you cannot do. Because the first few times when you felt this surrendering moment, you're going to try to use it as a tactic. You're going to think about everything that you did before you felt that, and you're going to try to recreate it. And you're going to do that many times until you sort of start to see that you're trying to recreate it, and that's when you're like it gets easier to like spot it. You're like, oh wait, I'm trying again. So that's going to take a long time, and it's really going to be a combination of you living your life even though you're not sleeping well. Because if you're not doing things because you're afraid you won't sleep, or like you're afraid you haven't slept and you're afraid of what you can or cannot do, I think it needs to be the combination of the two, because otherwise you're still going to be afraid. So I think once you start doing stuff that you're afraid to do when you haven't slept, so you go to work, you see your friends, and you see that you can have a good time even though you didn't sleep much, that's kind of for me when like it got like more steady or profound. Like my conviction of I can actually live my life even though I have this like insomnia experience. That's when it got like, all right, I can do this. Like
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of it anymore. That's when the fear subsided, because you can be chill and be like, all right, sleep is just going to happen, my mind will heal itself. But if you still don't believe that you can do stuff without having slept, I don't think it's going to do much for you. And believing that you can do stuff is asking you to be brave and have courage and go do those things that you believe that you cannot do. And once you see that you can, even though you won't feel great, you won't feel great. You'll feel tired, but you'll be fine. And sometimes you'll even find yourself having a moment that you're laughing or you're having a good time. And you're like, oh, I didn't even sleep and I actually had a good moment. And you'll see that throughout the day, you'll have like peaks of, oh, I actually feel perfectly fine. Then a few hours later, you're like, I'm so tired. And then you're perfectly fine. Um, and once you see that and you combine it with letting go and surrendering to whatever can happen that night, I think that's when you start making like actual steps.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So well said. And it's like this combination, if you will, with like the intellectual cognitive understanding and then the like experiential learning, like
Yes.
those two things.
Yes. That's like the magical combination of the two.
Right?
Yeah.
And one more little pointer here is that when we talked about how even if you have these big realizations, it takes quite a long time before that becomes like deeply ingrained and we really see things getting easier for us.
Yeah.
Now, when people first hear that, when they hear you say like it's going to take a long time, some people will hear that and go like, oh no, it's going to be like this, like really severe struggling for a long time. But I think that's not exactly what you mean, because you're in this process which overall things get easier. So even if it takes a long time, there are many like wonderful moments in that phase, right?
Yeah. Sorry. There's like a bunch of sirens. I don't know what's happening. But yeah, I think what people need to realize is that it's a part of like you have speed bumps. So it's not this entire like process of months of just struggling the way you were in the first like period. You sometimes have periods where you're sleeping really well and you can live your life and do your thing. But the fear isn't necessarily gone. And that's why you're going to have speed bumps, because you're going to sleep well and you're not even going to know why you're sleeping well. You're going to be like, oh my God, I'm sleeping so well. But you're still scared and you still think about it every day. So the struggle, like I said, insomnia does not end with good sleep. Somehow you'll sleep really well and then you'll enter a speed bump because you're going to be so worried. The fear's going to like take over a little bit again. And that's when you're going to have a speed bump. But then you have an easier time and another speed bump. And every speed bump, you learn more. And it's so cliche and it's so stupid because at some point you're like, I think I know everything now. And then you have a speed bump. And you're like, how is this possible? Like, I thought I knew everything and I thought I was like secure in everything that I've learned and my experience. Even I had a speed bump, I think like a month ago, because I had this really important like trip. I was going on a holiday and I had to get up at 5 in the morning. And I had this holiday with people that I didn't know. And we were gonna meet up for the first time and we had this entire day of traveling and in the evening we would like obviously have drinks and go out and I was like, I really need a good night's sleep for this because I need to socialize, I need to like get people to like me. And obviously I slept terrible. And I had a great day again. And gone was the struggle. Like, and even when I couldn't sleep that night, I was worried, but I also kind of the worry gets less because you are worried about the next day, but you know that you've done this before. And that's what I mean with be brave and do those things because even if you don't enjoy the day, your mind will sort of learn, okay, we've done this before. Like even though we didn't like it, we're not in danger. So that extreme fear becomes less and less and less and every speed bump you sort of get better and better and better.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so well said. And okay, so I think I just have these two my standard two last question for you.
Mhm.
One you kind of touched on, but it's the
Yeah.
question of have you seen that you learn things, going through this struggle, leaving the struggle, that have been helpful in other areas of life?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's why I call it such a valuable experience. I think you get a certain amount of like your personality gets shaped because of this. Like every trauma or heavy experience does like positively shape you as a person. I feel like you can go more into depth with people. I understand people better when they talk about like a depressive period or that they do not see the light. Like I fully understand what that means now. I think that's how painful it is. It's extremely valuable and I think it's somehow also like a beautiful part of life to have seen like the highs and the lows. And like I said, like with when I'm worried about something, when I'm going through heartbreak, that I can sort of when I'm stuck and I'm like I hate this and I can't stop thinking about it, and you get frustrated, and then I'm like, you know what? What if this is not like? What if my mind solves this problem for me? my mind has a self-healing capacity, and I can just sort of let it go. Not always. It doesn't always work. Not with everything. Like it's part of life to overthink sometimes, but it really helps me. So I think that's one like super valuable thing or two that I take from this
Yeah.
entire experience.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that one. And finally, if you could travel back in time to, you know, when this was really difficult for you, and share something with yourself, what would you say?
Well, yeah, I would probably say hold on, like it's gonna get better. Um, I would want to say everything that I've just told you. Like I would tell myself about like the self-healing capacity. I would say you need to be brave. Like you need to start doing stuff and not like putting your life on pause. You need to really get out and do stuff. I would say download the Bedtime app. Download it. You're going to learn so much. You're going to have somebody to talk to. Watch the success stories, and hang in there, because even though it's going to sound incredibly like unbelievable right now, even like if people are watching this, that you will get out of this. Even though your mind is telling you you won't, maybe your mind is telling you you won't even survive, you will. Because I used to watch these videos and think,
And
because people talk about it
sorry,
so lightly. Like, do they even know the
fire out
struggle
there.
that I'm in? Do they know what I'm feeling? Well, I do. And it does get better. Like I'm still here smiling, living my life. I'm a teacher. I go out again, and it does get better. But you need to hold on, study, learn, talk to people, and then you'll be okay. So
Wow.
I would say
Yeah,
that.
such powerful words, and no better place than to conclude here.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Tess, for being here and sharing, and
Thank you for having
we'll
me.
be in touch. All right. Okay. Bye, everyone out there. Hi, it's me, Daniel, and I hope you really found a lot of value in the video you just saw. Now, I have a question for you. Did you hit the like button? Did you leave a comment? If not, then please consider that, because that is what leads to people finding us, finding peaceful sleep and peace of mind, and feeling like themselves again, and all the other wonderful things that come from understanding what insomnia is really all about. So yes, just hit that like button, leave a comment, and that will help so much. Thank you.